Hey everyone, I hope that you're all doing really well. My name is George and I'm one of the customer champions here at PheedLoop. I'm actually so excited to introduce you guys to Jeff, Carly, and Danielle. This is the panel for growing associations with event technology in an era of rapid change. We're going to be focusing on answering some of the questions that a lot of you folks have as it relates to events and associations in the future during this very interesting time. So with that being said, let's get started. We have some amazing panelists here. So I want to give everybody an opportunity for them to introduce themselves. So why don't we actually start off with Danielle?
Hi, George. Thanks. I'm Danielle Lamothe. I'm the Vice President of Learning and Innovation with the Canadian Society of Association Executives, and I'm pleased to be here.
Awesome, Danielle. Yeah, we are so happy that you're here. Thank you so much for making the time. And why don't we go to Carly now and you can introduce yourself.
Thanks, George, and the PheedLoop team for inviting me. I'm Carly Silberstein. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Redstone Agency. We are a Canadian-based event and association management company, and looking forward to this dynamic discussion.
Yes, that's right. I remember, we used to talk a lot when our offices were kind of close to each other back in when we were in person, but now obviously virtually we can all hang out in this space here. But certainly not last but not least, Jeff, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, thanks, George. Great to be here. My name's Jeff Horne. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Wicket, and we're the world's first member data platform, really transforming how associations manage their membership data and connect with other software tools. And we're based here in Canada too, in the Ottawa area.
Awesome. Great. Well, we have an amazing crew of people. I like to call them the power panel as it relates to associations and technology, and we have a pretty real discussion today about what's to come in the future. So I prepared a couple of questions. So Danielle, I know that the CSAE is one of the leading organizations when it comes to associations. I'd love to hear from you on your experiences. What are some of the challenges that you might have seen presented to some of the associations for the past year or so?
Well, it's been a real mixed bag for associations because we have some associations that, they might be regulatory bodies, they're thriving, their members are working, and aside from remote work, not much has changed for them. And then there are a lot of associations for whom everything has changed. Members might not be working, so there's no revenue coming in, member dues are difficult. So it's really a real gamut of what the experience has been. So for us, for example, our business members, our sponsors, they've had a really hard year, hotels, destinations. So it poses a revenue challenge for us as we move forward. But our members are really, our executive members are really looking to us for information that's timely, advocacy. So it's a real challenge for associations to adapt to what the situation is for their unique case and to try to find new ways to do what we've been doing so well for so many years, bringing people together. It's just looking a lot different this year.
Yeah, I remember, chatting with a couple of PheedLoop customers who were just going through the whole, transitional period right around this time last year. And a lot of questions, not just about, hey, how does it go from in-person to virtual, but also like business related questions that they're asking. How do you manage profits and revenues and all those items?
For some of us, it's been a massive revolution. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like rewriting the playbook, which is pretty crazy. Have you seen any, stars from some of your associations that you work with? Anything that they've done that's been special?
I think, those of us who've approached this as an opportunity for exploration and trying new things have had a lot of good successes in that. Sometimes the successes have not been measured the same way we would have measured them in the past. So maybe your revenue isn't the same when you do a virtual event, but you're delivering learning to your members. People are engaged, they're grateful for what you've been able to do. So I think those associations that have just looked at this as an opportunity to try new things and given themselves, risen to the challenge. I heard of some associations early on that that just canceled entire conferences because they didn't know how to approach that. And I think that's going to be a challenge for them as they head into the second year of virtual events, and they didn't have the lessons learned. So they have to sort of come in, and certainly the expectations last July for a virtual event were very different than what they are now. So we got to, those of us who were like, okay, let's get in there and try, we got to make a lot of mistakes to a very patient audience, but we're happy to share those with you. If you haven't done it yet, don't worry. We'll tell you what doesn't work. But what worked in July doesn't work now. So it is a constant, you know, you can't rest on your laurels. You have to keep trying new things and exploring. I see Carly nodding her head a lot.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of head nodding here. I think, you know, there's a lot of new experiences. We're making mistakes, but it's an opportunity to learn. So that's fantastic, Danielle. Thanks so much for sharing. You know, Jeff, I wanted to kind of ask you, because, you know, you're obviously the member data platform at Wicket, and you have a pretty good pulse on associations and how they've been kind of managing technology, but also just their overall business. I'd love to hear, like, you know, what have you seen in terms of trends that might have impacted some of the customers that you work with?
Yeah, thanks, George. That's a great question. I think probably one of the most consistent trends we've seen, and this is true at CSAE as well, was just looking for flexibility in membership dues, right? And really having options around things like, can we offer our members, you know, a monthly payment plan instead of having to pay their membership dues all up front, as an example, or maybe providing, you know, quarterly options, or looking at things like auto renewal, like how can we make it easier for our member to pay their dues? So that's certainly a common trend we've seen. And I think the other one is really just around tools, right? And really, as we transition to this digital reality, just the importance of being able to quickly adapt to and adopt new tools. So that's platforms like PheedLoop for virtual events. It's making sure you've got flexibility with your website solution, so you could get the message out to your members really quickly and really quickly push content to them, and things like online community platforms as well. So just, you know, tools, digital tools to try to connect the members together is certainly one of the trends we've seen.
Got it. Have you seen a lot of people connect tools more now because of the recent transition, or has it just been more of an emphasis, or do they have more time to do that? What have you seen from that regards?
Yeah, well, I think what the pandemic did is it forced kind of this digital evolution that organizations were already on the path, and the pandemic just really put it into, you know, fast gear. So I think what we're seeing now is just a much faster adoption of those tools and embracing them, where there might have been, you know, some hesitation. Associations were really forced to lean in and to do so quickly. So I think, you know, one of the roles we play as a member data platform is to provide more flexibility, like to allow you to connect your membership data with those other tools, and to be able to adapt to those tools quickly and connect them together.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would say, like, you know, with the transition period, I think a lot of people were open to rewriting things, not following the same kind of like same playbook that they had done all the time in the past. And while people were on their way of maybe adding more tools, maybe that kind of increase in terms of speed and you know, approvals and all that stuff. So that's great to hear about, you know, Wicket and the role that you guys hold. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with how you guys kind of connect tools together for members and associations?
Yeah, well, really, at the end of the day, like, we see our role in the world as, you know, being a hub for membership data, so you can really trust that data, but making it easier to connect with other systems. And really then what that allows us to do is not only connect, but also to give insights out of the data we're then collecting through those integrations. So, you know, certainly empowering associations with insights out of their data is just a really key part of this whole thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know, you know, data is really important. You can use that data for insights and action. I know that our team is excited about that, and you might hear about an announcement later today on some of our advanced analytics tools, but that's great. And especially with the transition, I think data is becoming more accessible because people are going virtual and doing things online and all those items. So that's awesome, Jeff. Thanks so much for sharing. Carly, we've seen Redstone kind of see some tremendous growth in recent times. So congratulations. Really excited to hang out with the Red Squad as you guys kind of do a lot of cool things over the past couple months. But want to get your thoughts and perspectives on how you see virtual events really helping those associations survive and maybe even sometimes thrive during this pandemic.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, George. And Jeff, to your point, I think the past year has definitely allowed associations who have stereotypically or traditionally been status quo and doing things the way they've always been done. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we say at Redstone, one of the silver linings of COVID was that acceleration in terms of adoption of tech tools, tech platforms, and things of that sort. From our perspective, Redstone has always been a digital first agency in that we wanted to leverage platforms to even back like the Google Drive, 6 years ago when we started the company for increased collaboration and bringing efficiencies. Some associations still, I don't know today, but as of last year, still faxing things, and then someone would have to scan them and upload them and collate all of that. So, we've always been digital first. So I think that's a silver lining for us in that now our clients, regardless of industry, have had no choice but to adopt. And you know what? They're pleasantly surprised for the most part. In terms of virtual events, pivoting and focusing on that aspect of the past year, I think that with all of the challenges, and Danielle, to your point, some associations, some industries definitely struggling more than others. But again, sticking with my theme of silver linings here, I think that the virtual events, virtual or digital content creation and deployment, I think that's really allowed associations to do a number of things that they weren't doing or they weren't able to do before. I'll focus on three. I think it's increased reach. We used to only do things for our members. It was exclusive for membership, or you paid the non-membership dues. But I think at the beginning, at least, everyone was all about, we're in this together. They were offering up their content or their membership benefits either for free or a significantly discounted rate. And so they were casting the net really wide. So I think they were reaching more people were consuming their content. Back to your point, Jeff, about data, no one knows yet the results of the past year. But I think we will end up seeing either increase in membership, more quality membership as a result of that engagement with the organizations that maybe they didn't know about before, or they, didn't have access to them. The next thing I'll say is inclusivity. And it's kind of building on that. When we used to have to travel, when we had an annual conference in Vancouver or, Charlottetown or wherever, if you have a national organization and the rotation of the conference changes year over year, usually you have to make a choice. One or two people from your department can go and participate in that conference. But now if you're having it online and it's either free or reduced pricing to attend, why not send 15 or 20 people? So you're, bringing more people into the fold, but you're not leaving out, the junior coordinator in the department that wants to engage with that content. Now everyone can go. And I think in some cases, people have realized cost savings. There are certainly costs involved with hiring a production company or a professional event management company like ours, or engaging a PheedLoop type platform. So don't get me wrong, there are costs involved, but I think also you are saving on many other areas and either balancing your budget or coming in under budget. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot of differences when it comes to running a virtual event versus an in-person. Obviously, there's a lot of benefits to kind of highlight. So I love what you mentioned about just being able to send everybody from like an association versus just the one or two people who then maybe come back to the office and do like a round out sharing. But now you can all participate together. And it's also like a way for us to like connect with each other as well, because you're in the association, but you're maybe working from home. So it's kind of cool to maybe go on an adventure and go to a virtual conference together. So that's pretty cool. Carly, thanks for sharing that. Obviously with vaccines rolling out, future's looking brighter, the sun's shining. I'm feeling really good about it. But, Danielle, I wanted to ask you, do you think associations and members will return to the way things are in 2019, or is it going to be something different that you anticipate moving forward?
I think it's going to be something different, because I think what we've seen is we have seen some things work brilliantly in a virtual space. And I wonder if we would ever want to go back to doing things like our virtual AGM got 3 times the reach that it would get on a regular year. So why would we try to do that in person, take on the costs of renting a venue and only being able to welcome the locals and then have everyone else live a sort of lesser experience online? Like, so some of those things I think we see, oh, we can actually, to Carly's point, that inclusion, that that reach is extended. And so that's really exciting from a planning perspective, because you think, oh, okay, well, now that piece lives on its own and we know how to do it, and we can tweak these things, and that's good. And then other things we see, oh yeah, it really doesn't, and we've had some events, I'll just, like our CEO Symposium, which is an annual event that brings together the CEO and the head of the board, the chair of the board, and they do this really intense training, and it's a really popular event. We've been doing it for decades, and it's always in person, and it's quite expensive. And this year, the virtual event was a huge success. People loved it. Some people missed being in person, but it just made it possible for way more people to attend. So there will likely always be a virtual version of that event now. And there will probably be one in person. And I do think, I know at the beginning of the pandemic, we talked extensively about hybrid events, and hybrid was the future. And the further into the pandemic we get, I don't know, I'm starting to think that's not the future. The future is going to be intimate, in-person gatherings that are exclusively that, and large-scale virtual events. I don't know, maybe it's just the exhaustion, but I'm thinking, I just don't see combining those things elegantly as the future of events, especially for associations where the budgets are not unlimited and hybrid costs a lot. So it'll be interesting to see where we go, but that's kind of my thinking right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's no question that there will be some costs, both time and money, when it comes to hybrid. But you know, there are a lot of good questions that you pose there, and I don't know what's the right route. You know, whether it's the intimate, you know, kind of conversations, or having more scale, kind of virtual, or doing a combination of the two. How's CSAE kind of changing? Are you guys doing anything different this year? I know you mentioned
yeah, we're like a lot of associations. We're looking, you know, we're going back to the basics and getting, you know, doing a needs assessment exercise to see how have the needs of our members changed. What do they need from us today? You know, we spent the first 10 months working virtually, and we're quite surprised at, despite the fact that we really miss each other, at how manageable it was. And so we've now gone to a virtual office. That's a massive change, but you know, the tools that we have helped us do that. And it doesn't, you know, we were never, wasn't an open office where members came in every day to talk to us. I mean, they came when we invited them, but they didn't, you know, wasn't like, people didn't need to come see us to get their needs met as members. So we're going to do a lot differently. And it's really been an interesting time, because you go from these 3 to 5 year strategic plans in the old days to now you're looking at 6 months and thinking, okay, what does that 6 months look like? And I expected that by this point we would be out of that sort of shorter time frame, still with that long view. But we're not, because there's still so much uncertainty about what that impact of vaccines will be, and when we'll be able to meet in person, and who will be able to afford to come. So it's still a lot of pivoting, a lot of adapting, and a lot of phone calls and checking in with people to try to get a sense of, what do you need? Tell me what to do, and then we adapt to what we're being told. So yeah, it's a really interesting time.
Danielle, I love what you mentioned at the beginning, and it was having a needs assessment, right? Like, every single organization or association is different. Every single group of members are different. So there isn't like a one size fits all, but you know, you're calling people, you're messaging them, and trying to understand what would work best for your members. So that's great. I think that's super important. I wanted to kind of highlight that specifically. Jeff, I know, you know, as these associations and organizations are growing, you know, as Carly mentioned, they want to get around the status quo and actually start adapting new technologies, moving, you know, further. You know, I would love to learn from you, as associations are looking to have more of a digital member experience. what would you recommend things that they should consider when it comes from a data perspective for any association?
Yeah, I think that historically, associations have not been the fastest to jump in and adopt new technology, to be open to exploring new technologies. And, as mentioned earlier, the pandemic has, put that on a fast track, and associations have had to. I think from a data perspective, like, it's obviously so critical to, first and foremost, has to have trust in your data, to be able to have a system of truth and a place where you can look and really know that what you're looking at is the truth about your members, and that you truly feel that you know your members, which is just so critically important. Like, if you're going to deliver value to your members, you have to first really know them and understand them. And we've been surprised over the past year how many associations we talk to where they can't succinctly answer the question of just how many members do we have? And if you ask 3 different staff members, you might get 3 different answers. And so I think that's just, getting back to that trust in your data is just the first critical step. And that kind of ties in with the importance of data governance as a whole in organizations. Like, you need to have common language that you use within your organization when you talk about data. Like, if I come into an association and I ask them to define a lapsed member, I might get 3 different responses from 3 different people. So just having a common dictionary within your organization, it's not going to be the same for every organization, but within your organization, to really lean in and start thinking about data governance is just so very important today.
Cool. Thanks so much, Jeff. And I think you bring a point where, Danielle, she's talking about the needs assessment and trying to understand qualitatively what the needs are of the members. But, with data, you can use like statistically valid data that you can trust to kind of, validate some of those concerns or make decisions from that. For the audience that may not know about Wicket, what are some of the benefits that Wicket would bring over maybe some traditional member management tools?
Yeah, great question. I think that traditionally associations have leveraged what's called association management software to manage their membership base. And these are large, what we'd call monolithic software tools, where they have a whole lot of modules that try to do everything for the organization. And I think what we've seen during the pandemic is that organizations just need more flexibility than that. They need to be able to quickly adopt tools that are going to allow them to best engage with their members in a lot of different ways to create efficiencies internal. And the AMS systems, just because of the way they're built, and because they're trying to do so many things within the platform, they tend to not be as flexible, not as easy to integrate with, don't have the robust capabilities of purpose-built software. And so that's really how Wicket is different. Like, truly as a member data platform, we're built to be really focused on an easy way to manage your membership data and trust that data, and very easily share it with other software tools, connected to an email marketing system, connected to a website platform, connected to an event platform like PheedLoop. So really, we're trying to make it easier. We're trying to take the pain out of the integrations to make the data flow, but also consume what we call touch points, which is basically all of the engagement activities, the key actions happening across all of those tools. To bring it into one place so that we can then report on engagement, like what are your members doing, who's engaged and who's not, whether that's individually or for corporate members, what are all the staff at this one organization doing from a membership standpoint, which just really helps you to, provide more insights back to your members to validate the value of the membership, right? Here's all the things that we're doing for you, and here's all the way your staff or individually are engaging with the association.
Got it. Yeah, the way I kind of think about Wicket is, there's a lot of information out there, and you'll be surprised by how many tools you might use at an association. I know that we use a lot of different tools at PheedLoop, and being able to kind of have that lens that connects and interweaves all of them together is, I think, something that you can really unlock. So that's really awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that, Jeff. Carly, obviously Redstone, the Red Squad, you guys are huge consumers of technology, and you're super forward thinking and have tried out a lot of different pieces of technology out there. I know that associations are asking about hybrid. I'm really curious, when someone comes to you with a question like that of, hey, do we go hybrid, do we not? I'm sure in turn you ask them a couple questions. What are those questions that you ask, and what kind of advice would you give to an association that might be considering hybrid right now?
Yeah, I think it's a great line of questioning. And back to something Danielle had said before is asking them their history over the past year, or even before the pandemic. Were you doing any kind of webinar series? Were you doing a podcast? What kind of digital content creation were you engaged with? And then moving it forward. So pandemic struck, how have you been delivering value to your members? And understanding kind of their history. Did they decide just to outright cancel? Are they only getting now 2021 getting ramped up with their first digital conference? And understanding a little bit about where they're coming from, so you know how to guide them to where they should be going. Again, back to Danielle's point, I think hybrid might work depending on what their goals and objectives are. So as an event planner, going back to basics, in person or virtual or hybrid or whatever you want to call it, there's a few questions that before you take stakeholder or company money or organizational money and invest in this event. Why are you doing the event? Is there a purpose? Is there a point? So asking about those goals and objectives. How are you going to measure success? And what level of engagement do you want? So, can you do a 1-hour webinar where it's a talking head, or can you sit in a breakout room and have a talking head and no engagement, everyone gets up and leaves? Because there's a tool for that. It's not PheedLoop, but there's a tool that can do that. But then if you want a highly engaging experience and you want to do a little in person, larger audience, remote, maybe hybrid works for you. So I think it's really understanding where are you coming from, where are you trying to go, and then looking at how are you measuring success. What will your board say was a good use of money, and the sentiment that you're leaving your stakeholders with at the end of whether it was hybrid, whether it was in person only, or whether it was online. So I think those are a few questions that I would ask, and then. I think you have a question that puts PheedLoop in the hot seat, George.
Yeah, I sure do. I was going to ask you, Carly, what are some maybe features that you like to see PheedLoop release that associations would really value?
So I think it was when this group congregated before we went live for this event. So Jeff mentioned how impressed he was with your team, your product team, and your engineers and your entire team's ability to keep up with the pace and to take customer feedback, Red Squad very much included. We are on the phone with someone from the PheedLoop office at least multiple times a day. I think that your ability, willingness, and just your customer-centric approach has really helped guide the industry. I know our office for certain, but the industry through this incredibly challenging time. So your ability to keep the pace of change and continue to innovate and release new products and features is remarkable. So I'll start with that. However, if you did want to hear,
you can even take a breath.
No. My team was very happy when you asked me this, because I in turn turned around and said, "Here's your moment. I'm going public with what we want you to release." So we obviously we endorse the product. We love the product. We would really like to see gallery view as an option instead of just speaker view. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we can let you know. We would love a little bit of additional control on some of the breakout features in terms of it being private versus accessible to everybody. And it doesn't have to be for the full duration of the event, but just having a little bit more flexibility in the configuration there. Meet and Stream, so the tool that we're using, the native streaming platform built right into PheedLoop, it's awesome. I think that the process in terms of purchasing credits is a little bit confusing, at least on the consumer side of things. So if we can find a way that it's a little bit more of a streamlined process to purchase those credits and allocate them per session, would make the buying journey a little bit easier. And the last thing I would say is if, there's some sessions where only a certain stakeholder group can go, or, it's invite only, or, the AGM member only, or whatever. I think it would be good if we could hide those sessions from plain view, so that if you're not invited or you're not welcome to join, you don't click on and get no restricted access, or, that negative verbiage and just, making it more of a pleasant user experience. And so if we just like hide it out of sight, out of mind, those are a few things. But again, overall, we're very happy with the pace that you've been able to release and personally answer our qualms when we call you at 12 o'clock at night. George, tell your product team we need this, and then you make it happen for the most part.
Yeah, that's awesome, Carly. Thanks so much for sharing. And it is definitely the hot seat. I'm feeling the heat right now, but what I'm really happy to hear is that a lot of the items that you shared were either already working through it, or a lot of them, from what I can understand, are a little bit easier for us to do. So absolutely ways to simplify the experience for the event planner, ways to make things a little bit simpler for the event attendee, all on our list. And that's all I wanted to bring up, that we do have some Q&A breakouts that are happening later today. So it should be pretty fun. Myself, our CEO will be taking feature requests, as well as some of the lovely members here on this panel will be there as well. But I know we're just about time right now. So I did want to say thanks so much to everybody for all your time here today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, George.
Thanks for having us.
All right, awesome, everybody. We'll see you at the next session, and take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.